over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Good afternoon, and as always, welcome back. There's a lot going on in the world today. LA protesters dispersed, but there appears to be more protests currently and more on the horizon. There have been months of infighting at the Democratic National Committee, and it's only getting worse. And there's a lot going on in the world. What's happening and why? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they occur in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historical context in which most events take place. During each episode, my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and the broader historic context in which they occur, thus enabling you to better understand and analyze the events that are impacting the global village in which we live. Let's look at a few major stories. The Washington Post reports protests are continuing in the Los Angeles area today after more than 50 protesters were arrested this past weekend as anti-ICE demonstrators clashed with law enforcement. The Trump administration ordered the deployment of more than 2,000 National Guard soldiers in an effort to quell the protests. As I understand it, only between 200 and 300 have actually been sent, prompting California Governor Gavin Newsom to say he plans to sue the administration. Months of infighting at the Democratic National Committee escalated into a new round of open warfare Sunday, with several top party officials accusing an embattled member of their leadership team of the leaking of a portion of a private and emotional meeting. Some are blaming Vice Chair David Hogg for destroying his ability to lead the party. On the international front, a high-level American military delegation is set to arrive in Damascus, Syria in the coming days to sign an agreement with the Syrian government regarding the status of U.S. military bases in the country. This development marks a significant shift in U.S. policy towards Syria, transitioning from an unauthorized military presence to a formalized legal partnership. Finally, Iranian intelligence minister Ismail Khatib said yesterday that Tehran had obtained a quote-unquote treasure trove of sensitive Israeli documents related to Israel's secret nuclear weapons program and its relations with the United States and Europe. Now, with that, let's go into the meat of today's discussion. The issue before us is, as the Financial Times has reported, Donald Trump is testing the limits of presidential authority by sending troops into Los Angeles. Critics warn administration is increasingly ruling in defiance of U.S. Constitution and political norms. Let me read two paragraphs from the Financial Times, because I think the Financial Times analysis of this as a constitutional issue is much clearer and really gets to the crux of the issue than what I've been reading in terms of domestic coverage. This is the Financial Times. By calling on troops to suppress protests in Los Angeles on Sunday, Donald Trump has shown he's willing to put the country on a war footing and test the boundaries of executive power to achieve his goals. For the first time in decades, the National Guard was deployed against citizens on domestic soil against the wishes of a state's governor, using a rarely invoked law designed to help the U.S. fight off a foreign invasion. As a U.S. president last deployed a state's National Guard without being asked by its governor in 1965, when Lyndon Johnson sent troops to protect civil rights demonstrators in Selma, Alabama. Folks, the laws around this issue are somewhat vague. So generally, or let me not even say vague. They can be up for interpretation. So generally, what we have, let me try to provide some clarification in some muddy water. So generally, we have the United States military, the Air Force, the Marines, the Army, blah, 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 to protect America as a country from threats from outside forces, invasions, attacks. We have the National Guard to protect Americans from domestic threats, either national disasters or domestic conflicts. Under normal circumstances, the president, as commander-in-chief, controls the military, and state governors control the National Guard in their respective states. So the federal military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, they are prohibited from carrying out domestic law enforcement duties against U.S. citizens except in times of extreme emergency. The National Guard is a hybrid entity that serves both state and federal interests. Often the National Guard operates, and usually the National Guard operates under state command and control, using state funding. Sometimes National Guard troops will be assigned by their state to serve federal missions. That's important. The Guard will be assigned by their state, as in their governor, to serve federal missions, remaining under state command, but using federal funding. There's something called the Insurrection Act of 1807. The Insurrection Act of 1807. That is the U.S. federal law that empowers the president to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to federalize National Guard units of individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder or insurrection or of armed rebellion against the federal government of the United States. And that, again, is very important. The president is not to use the National Guard to quell disturbances in a state that are a state issue. Under the Insurrection Act of 1807, the president can use the National Guard to quell armed rebellion against the federal government. And that's not what was happening in California. Now, So that's the Insurrection Act of 1807. There's another, it's also important to realize that the 1807 law, that's the main legal mechanism that the president can use to activate the military or the National Guard, as I just said, in times of rebellion or unrest. And let me read to you the language from the act. And I appreciate y'all's patience with me here. I think it is important to understand this from as clear of a legal perspective as I can provide it. So the language from the act reads as follows. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impractical to enforce the laws of the United States in any state by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the military of any state and use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce laws or to suppress the rebellion. That's what the law says. But here's the key. He didn't invoke the Insurrection Act on Saturday. That's not the law he used. He used another law that allows the president to federalize National Guard troops under certain circumstances. He federalized part of the California National Guard under what is known as Title 10 authority, which places him, not the governor of California, atop the food chain. This is according to Gavin Newsom's office, and Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. So Trump is acting in opposition to Newsom, who under normal circumstances would retain control and command of California's National Guard. While Trump said that federalizing the troops was necessary to address the lawlessness in California, the Democratic governor has said that Trump's move was purposely inflammatory and will only escalate tensions. And that statement, I believe, is very, very important. Was purposefully inflammatory and will only escalate tensions, and I will explain why in a moment. So again, this Title 10 is what Trump used to place California National Guard troops under his command. The law says that there are basically three circumstances where this can be done. First, when the U.S. is invaded or is in danger of invasion. That didn't happen. When there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the authority of the U.S. government. That didn't happen. Or when the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States with regular forces. That didn't happen. I believe that the administration is relying on the second instance when the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States, but that's a stretch. That didn't happen, and I think it's a real stretch for the administration to try to hang its hat on that element. The law also says that orders for those purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states. And there is a lot of debate about whether or not the president can activate National Guard troops without the order of the state's governor. But again, the law says that the order that Donald Trump used to activate California and control and command California National Guard troops, quote, shall be issued through the governors of the states. And as far as I know, Donald Trump did not do that. And that is one of Gavin Newsom's major complaints. So that is the constitutional analysis. That is the legal analysis. But more importantly here, I believe that there's a political analysis at this stage of the game that needs to be examined. And what I'm going to do here is go through a few questions or statements from you all. Mel W., a new member. Mel W., a new member. Thank you so much for joining us, Mel. Greatly appreciate your new membership. And it's because of wonderful people like Mel W. and Sherry and others, Peggy Parks Miller, that enable us to stay afloat. So thank you very much for being that new member. Let me see what we've got here. Sherry, good afternoon to you. Thank you for that greeting. Peggy, please help you understand what? I'm not quite sure. Oh, so how does Newsom have standing to sue? Peggy, a member asked, how does Newsom have standing to sue? Newsom has standing to sue primarily because Donald Trump has activated California State National Guard troops without going through the governor's office. And in a condition under Title 10 says, and again, I just read it, but I'll read it again. Where is it? It says that where'd it go? It says that the order shall be issued through the governors of the states. And that did not happen. And also, I think another element under Title 10. Well, I think that's the primary element under Title 10. And also, I think that they would argue, because I think they're filing their petition with the court tomorrow. So Peggy, I'm a little vague on what the basis of their argument is, because they haven't submitted their argument to the court yet. But again, when you look at the three circumstances, the U.S. is invaded or in danger of invasion. That's not applicable here. There is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the authority of the U.S. government. That's, again, probably what the administration is trying to hang its hat on. But I think that argument is incredibly tenuous or suspect, especially when you talk about a presidential administration or a president taking the extreme act of stepping over the governor's authority and engaging or activating the National Guard in that state. And there's also, I think, a 10th Amendment argument here. And the 10th Amendment says very succinctly, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Again, the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So I think that the state of California will make a 10th Amendment argument to the court saying that the activation of the National Guard under these circumstances falls solely within the purview of the governor of the state of California, that Donald Trump does not have the constitutional authority to activate and command the National Guard under this circumstance. Now, I'm not saying that that is not a qualitative assessment on my part. I'm not saying whether the president has or does not have the authority to do that. What I am merely trying to provide here is the constitutional and legal context in which these actions are taking place. So that's why, and again, I reiterate that the state of California has not submitted its document to the court. So without that, I don't know what their arguments are, but that's my basic assessment of where they're going to try to hang their respective hats. And I think the 10th Amendment is a very, very key element to their argument. So let me see what else I have. Ernest. I think we're in that moment that we've been discussing, even if it's not us at the head of the moment. My question to you is, should Black people get involved with people who are not allies? Should Black people get involved with people who are not allies? Ernest, that's an interesting question, because I'm without any more elaboration, and please feel free to provide some if you so desire. I'm trying to figure out, how would we get involved with people that are not allies? Because I can only see, in the context of this conversation, 3 categories of people: allies, enemies, and independent. So in this context, I think it goes in very, very simple terms. You're either with us or against us. If you're not an ally, you're an enemy. Because in the issues that are most relevant to the African American community, you can't straddle the fence. You're either pro-freedom or anti-freedom. You're either pro-equality or anti-equality. You either support the Constitution or you don't support the Constitution. So there are some who would say, well, in terms of this particular issue, I'm going to sit this one out. Well, you can't sit this out. If you sit this out, then we have to put you in the enemy category. We can't put you in the independent category. So with that being kind of the premise of my analysis, which may not be yours, but with that being the premise of my analysis, how do you get involved with those who are not allies? Now, to that point, if what you're asking me is, can we form alliances with people that are not natural allies, understanding what I've just laid out, I believe you can find common ground with those that aren't traditional allies. There are instances wherein you, in the course of conflict, can find other elements of people who would not naturally be your ally, but under particular circumstances or conditions may have a common cause. I'm not going to take it as far as to say the enemy of my enemy is my friend, because that isn't always true. But what I'm trying to say is, so let me throw out a scenario just for the sake of this conversation. As African Americans, and then you have a group of Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Australian Americans, I don't pick a group, who, under normal circumstances, we may not be allied with. But in this particular circumstance, they find themselves being oppressed by the very same forces that are oppressing us. And so they come to us and say, look, I know we're not usually on the same page. I know we don't usually see eye to eye on the same issues. But in this particular circumstance, we're fighting the same foe. Will you align with us in opposition to either this particular piece of legislation or this particular person that's running for public office? And then we sit back and if we're smart, we sit back and say, you know what? This is an alliance that we can form. But here's, to me, the real common element, or the real important element, that in many instances we overlook. We, as African Americans, have a tendency to try to form alliances out of positions of weakness, not out of positions of strength. And so I've always said that when you try to form an alliance out of a position of weakness, you tend to wind up capitulating, not negotiating, because you're in a position of weakness. So, and Ernest, I know this is a very long answer to a very short question. And I hope I'm understanding your question. So with all of that being said, in certain circumstances, I believe you can form alliances with people who are not traditional or natural allies. But you have to, A, understand the conditions under which, clearly understand, and your ally has to clearly understand the condition under which the alliance is being formed, and you have to formulate that alliance under or through a position of weakness, through a position of strength, not through a position of weakness. In fact, let me give you a real time or example, because this just came to mind. The MAGA folks right now, a lot of MAGA folks are really, really angry with Donald Trump, because a lot of the actions that Doge has taken and a lot of actions that the administration is taking outside of the construct of Doge are having an impact on their lives that they were not anticipating. They're losing their jobs. Their loved ones are being fired. Health centers in their neighborhoods are being closed. In their rural areas are being closed. The closing of the Social Security offices that were close to them are impacting their ability to apply for Social Security services and resources. Many of them who are veterans are finding that the attack on the Veterans Administration is having an unexpected, unanticipated impact on their lives. And so they're showing up, as we've talked about on this show before. They're showing up at these town hall meetings in Iowa, at Senator Grassley's town hall meeting, screaming at him, dude, do your job. And surprisingly, some of them were asking Grassley, what are you doing about Mr. Abrigo, the guy that was sent to the legal American resident who was sent to El Salvador? They're asking Chuck Grassley, what are you doing about this? So that's a group of people who many would argue are not a natural ally of the issues surrounding the African American community. And as we look at the basis of their ire, you could make the argument that there are some opportunities for alliance there. In fact, I would submit to you that when you remove the element of ethnicity from a lot of the issues that we find ourselves as being points of division, when you remove the element of ethnicity, you will find we have a lot more in common. Then there are a lot more issues that we share in common that as opposed to those that separate us. But because we allow ourselves to be blinded by that element of ethnicity, we can't see the common ground upon which we stand. So, but see, once you start to, as Gary Flowers would say, unpack that knapsack, and you start to see we have more, and there are more issues that we share in common than separate us, then those people should stop being enemies and should start being allies. Or maybe, maybe the word enemy is too strong of a word. Maybe I should say forces of opposition. Forces of opposition. So, Ernest, hopefully that provided some answer to your question. Cherie, why are there so much waste with having attorneys fight fascists? I don't know the answer. I'd have to sit down and really contemplate that question. The question I have is, would he do this in a red state? Kevin Baptiste, would Trump do this in a red state? Not to the degree that he's doing that. In fact, Kevin, that gets me into when I said that there was a constitutional analysis and then there's a political analysis. You're taking me into the political analysis of this. No. Donald Trump is doing this. And the reason I say no is because I don't know of a red state that considers itself to be a sanctuary state. And Donald Trump is intentionally picking this fight in those areas that consider themselves to be sanctuary cities, and those are blue states. Also, Donald Trump is picking this fight in California because he sees Gavin Newsom as the governor of California and as a Democrat as being a potential 2028 presidential candidate. And so he's trying to strike a blow at Gavin Newsom early in the game. It would not surprise me, depending on how these challenges go in court, if you don't see this issue manifesting itself in Michigan, because Gretchen Whitmer, I believe Michigan is a sanctuary state. I'm not certain on that, but Gretchen Whitmer is considered another 28 presidential nominee, a potential nominee. And I know he wants to take a shot at her as well. So, Kevin, no, I don't see Donald Trump taking this kind of aggressive action in a red state. Cherie, you say Cory Booker last night said he would love Elon Musk's money. I did not see that interview. I will take you on your word. That does not surprise me, because anybody that will take AIPAC money, particularly any person of color that will take AIPAC money, they'll take money from anybody. They'll take money from anybody. If you are black and you will take AIPAC money, if you are black and you back genocide, then you'll take money from the devil. So that does not surprise me. And so that goes for Cory Booker, that goes for Hakeem Jeffries, that goes for Kamala Harris, that goes for the guy from New York whose name I can never remember. That goes for the whole kit and caboodle of them. If you'll take AIPAC money, and you're black, you will take money from anybody. You will do the bidding of anybody. And here's the thing. There's no way that you can take Elon Musk money and not do Elon Musk bidding. There's no way you can take AIPAC money and not do AIPAC bidding. He or she who pays the piper calls the tune. And Cory Booker doesn't strike me, and never has struck me, as being a person who would stand up, who would take Elon Musk money and then stand up to Elon Musk. Hakeem Jeffries does not strike me as being the kind of man who would take AIPAC money and then stand up to AIPAC. Doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. Doesn't strike me as having that kind of backbone. So, no, I don't see it. Cory Booker saying that does not surprise me. In fact, I would submit to you that that was a not so subtle way of Cory Booker asking Elon Musk for money. Cherie, I see that as a not so veiled request by Cory Booker, publicly saying to Elon Musk, homie, please pay me. I'm open. That's what I see. I hope, Cherie, I hope everyone has read Alex de Tocqueville's book, Democracy in America, published between 1835 and 1840. In fact, I have a copy of it somewhere on my bookcase. You're right. Very good book to read. Kevin Baptist, LA Sheriff, Police, and California Highway Patrol, largest force in the country. No need to call any other department in. Kevin, you're absolutely right. And here's a reality. I'm going to read Kevin's point again. Kevin says LA has the Sheriff Department, the LAPD, and the California Highway Patrol, largest police force in the country. No need to call any other department in. Now, let me first say, I haven't looked at the numbers in terms of the size of the forces. So, Kevin, I will trust you that that statement is accurate. I tend to believe it is, because California is the largest state in the country in terms of geographic space, and I believe in terms of population. Might run neck and neck with Texas. I haven't looked at that data for a while, but with all of that being said, Kevin, and even if it's not the largest, it is close to it. So I don't think that really needs to be debated. But my point is, to your point, Kevin, that there's no need to call other departments in. I think you're absolutely right. And here is the reality. If you were following this unrest since Saturday when it started, and you looked at where things were on Sunday, things were calming down. Things late Sunday were calming down. What stoked the resurgence of the conflict? Donald Trump announcing he would send the National Guard in. That's what reignited the conflict. And Donald Trump did that. This is my opinion because I'm not inside the man's mind and I'm not in the room while these things are being discussed. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts that it was a calculated political decision that as the Trump administration saw the quelling of the disturbance on Sunday, they figured we cannot allow this opportunity to go by. And so what did they do? They threw another shrimp on the Barbie. They threw another log on the fire. They threw more gasoline onto the smoldering embers. And by them saying, we're going to bring the National Guard in, that brought all the forces back to the street. Which I would say to those in California listening to this, don't give Donald Trump what he wants. We have to be more strategic in our responses. We have to be more strategic in how we express our outrage. So, to those in California that might be listening to me, and I'm not, projecting or saying that I have any type of input or control, folks, go home. Go home. To take a theme from Charlie Parker, now is not the time. Exercise a little more forward thinking. Exercise a little more control. Be a little more strategic in your ire and in your outrage. Don't give Donald Trump what he wants. Go home. Let Gavin Newsom and the Attorney General of California sue him in court. Let the judges see that Gavin Newsom and the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department and the California Highway Patrol can actually handle this. There's no need for Donald Trump to send in the National Guard. And by the way, from what I understand, he's put the Army, I can't remember the Army base that's there, on alert. So not only is he looking to activate and control the National Guard. See, because if you pull back, if you broaden your perspective, this has everything to do with another test case for martial law. Now, remember, when Donald Trump deported Mr. Abrigo. What's the gentleman's name? To El Salvador. When that first happened, I just want to be sure I get the that I have the man's Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, Mr. Garcia. Kilmar Abrigo Garcia. Remember when Donald Trump first deported Mr. Kilmar Abrigo Garcia? I said this has a hell of a lot less to do with immigration and everything to do with due process. That the case of Mr. Kilmar Abrigo Garcia was the trial balloon that Donald Trump was floating to test the limits of due process. That if he were able to get away with deporting Kilmar Abrigo Garcia and not affording him due process, that he would then start exiling American citizens to foreign countries. And a couple days after I said that, and I'm not saying that it happened because I said it. I'm just saying I was one of the, I think, early ones in the game to see the play and called the play before it started happening. That a whole lot of other folks are saying, hey, this ain't got a whole lot to do with immigration as much as it does with exiling American citizens, particularly American citizens of color. So I'm saying to you now, getting back to Kevin's question, I think the Trump administration is using this immigration conflict issue as a trial balloon to push the limits and to test the limits of the president's ability to intervene militarily in states, to turn the military, and I'm now putting the National Guard under the military umbrella, to turn the guns against American citizens. Can he do it simply by saying, I'm the president and I want it done? So we can't, and this is another reason why I'm saying to those that are protesting in the street, you've got to be more strategic in your ire. You've got to be more strategic in how you choose to express your displeasure, your discontent, and your anger. Don't give him the ammunition, literally and figuratively. Don't give this man the ammunition to try to validate to the court that he's right in using extrajudicial, extra legal means to suppress opposition. Because that's what I really think is at the bottom line here of Trump's action. He wants to exercise, he's an authoritarian. Many will argue, and rightfully so, a fascist. He's an authoritarian. He wants to be a dictator. And so these are the types of actions authoritarians in waiting and in wanting will exercise in order to establish their authority. To hell with what the governors want in their states. If I, as president, want to send in the National Guard, to hell with the 10th Amendment. To hell with the 4th Amendment. That's what he was saying about due process. To hell with the due process clause. If I want to deport you, or if I want to exile you, as the president, I can do it. So this, I think, is how we need to be framing our analysis. Because when you frame your analysis in this manner, it takes you into different places. So Kevin says, we got to fight. Yes, we do. Wait a minute. So Peggy says, if governor files a responsible claim based on some of the criteria that you read and the courts agree that Department of Justice overstepped the bounds, how or who would enforce the court order? Well, now, Peggy, that's a great question because, well, we'll have to see where Governor Newsom files his claim. Because I would assume he's going to initially go through the standard that he'll file it in circuit court, and then it'll make its way up to this. I haven't heard that he's taking this directly to the Supreme Court. So first of all, he'll send it through the normal chain of command within the court system. And then, but to your question, who will enforce the court order? That's going to be part of the fight, because Donald Trump is going to ignore if the order comes down and not in his favor. I assume he's going to appeal it, and as he appeals it, he will ignore it. So then we get a question of, can Gavin Newsom, as the governor of California, bring out the National Guard to enforce a court order against executive action? That's a fight I think Donald Trump is trying to start. So, Peggy, I don't know the answer to your question. One would only hope that a president would be smart enough to follow the dictate of the court. Obviously, Donald Trump is not that smart. So we're going to have to see the answer to your question. I wish I were smarter and had a better answer for you. But as I sit here, and maybe upon further contemplation this evening, tomorrow, I may have a better answer for you. But as I sit here right now, I don't know. So let's see. What else do we have here? Kevin, this is not about ideologies. This is about, I think you're talking about the enemy versus ally question. It's interesting. So there's this dialogue going. Jaribu Mapinduzi talks about Latinos being our natural ally. And in this country, I believe that is correct. But the question becomes, what is the basis of the alliance? Because there are those that have tried to draw wedges between what we know to be a natural alliance. And some of those wedges are based on economics versus, social ideological alliances. And so we, depends on where is one looking to form the alliance? What is the basis of the alliance? Because Jaribu, you say Latinos are our brothers and sisters. Of course we are allies. This is an easy question. Ideologically, Jaribu, I think it is an easy question. But in too many instances, too many of us have allowed outside forces and outside interests to weigh in and dissuade what would normally be a natural alliance. So what are the grounds? What are the bases? What are the ideologies upon which we naturally and I put that in quotes, align ourselves. No one called the National Guard on the domestic terrorists who took control of the Capitol. I have to check that because I thought that at some point in that process, not in the initial development of the melee, of the attempted overthrow, but I think later on in that process, I thought the National Guard was called out. AM, I could be wrong on that. I have to check that. So let me see here. Where else are we? We've got Lee Ricks. Lee Ricks, thank you very much for that $9 super sticker. As a trucker, the Times truckers from most red states or MAGA crowds don't like Californians. They call it communist California. So they like this and they think I'm not understanding this. They like this and think it should. Oh, maybe you're saying leave the union. Okay. I'm not sure how to. I'm not a trucker, and I'm not that well versed in what many truckers think. So, Lee, I'll read that again. I really don't have a lot of comment for it because I'm not that well versed in it. As a trucker, the Times truckers from most red states or MAGA crowds don't like California. They call it communist, which many have done for many years. And I'm from California. So they like this and they think, I think you're saying leave the union. Okay. I don't know how to respond to that because I really am not that well versed in it. Ping says, well said, Wilmer. Ping one. Well, thank you. Ping one. I greatly appreciate that. So folks, Willis Williams, Cory Booker has the backbone of a jellyfish. Actually, Willis, I have found jellyfish to have stronger backbones. Kevin, a jellyfish has more spine than these fools. That was exactly where I was headed. And Willie says, I'm sorry, my bad. So folks, look. And Kevin says, agreed, coming live from Oakland. So again, folks, we've got to be more strategic here. And I would beg those in California to go home, step back, organize, strategize, be a little more forward thinking. Let's play the longer game here. Donald Trump is intentionally trying to pick a fight. Don't give him the fight he's trying to pick until you are in a position to win that fight. Read some Sun Tzu. In fact, let me see here. Who is this saying this? AM says, and a member of the club, good advice for the protesters. They should be strategic. If not, it's self-sabotage. Rochelle says, I see your point, Dr. Leon. Well, thank you all very much. Folks, go home, read some Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu tells you never fight a war before you've won it. You never start a conflict and you win the fight before you fight it. That's what Sun Tzu will tell you. You win the fight before you fight it. And you've got to think through. And, Gil Scott-Heron says that the revolution is not what you see on the television. The revolution comes when you change your mind, when you change the way you look at things. And I'll leave you with that. That the action that you see in the street is not the revolution. The action that you see in the street is the physical manifestation of a change in thought. So, folks, read some Sun Tzu. Read some General Giap, People's War, People's Army. Organize and strategize at a grassroots level. Don't give Donald Trump right now what he's looking for. He wants the unrest on the news to be the unrest on the news. That also takes attention away from his big, ugly bill that he is now in the process of losing ground on. So with that being said, I apologize. Again, we had another conflict with my published guest. Not personal conflict. We just had a last minute calendar organizing conflict. So we'll get all that worked out in the very near future. So with that being said to you all, I want to thank you all today for tolerating me. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast. Stay tuned. New episode tomorrow. Dr. Linwood Tawhid is going to join us tomorrow. That I guarantee. And so that's going to be the new episode for tomorrow. Please follow and subscribe. Leave a review. Share the show. Follow me on social media. All the links are below. And remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter. And we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. People in California protesting, please go home. Please go home. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.